Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into Lexis AI. And honestly, this is a fascinating startup because they're solving what might literally be the single biggest blind spot in the entire global AI race right now. Think about it. Almost every tech giant out there is completely obsessing over building bigger data centers and more power-hungry models. But they're making this massive assumption that the user is always connected to fast, reliable internet. But what happens when you just remove that assumption? Well, Lexis AI is fundamentally rethinking how intelligence gets delivered. They are building AI that works exactly where the internet simply doesn't. So, to really understand the scale of what Lexis is tackling, we're going to break this explainer down into 5 quick areas. First, the AI access gap. Then, we'll introduce Lexis AI, dig into their technical innovation, look at their purpose-built products, and wrap up with the actual investor pitch. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the AI access gap. Right now, Silicon Valley is completely fixated on this massive compute race, right? We're talking gigawatts of power and total cloud dominance. But that whole narrative completely ignores a staggering daily reality for emerging markets: 600 million. That is the number of Africans currently living without reliable internet access. When the network drops, and for millions of people that happens every single day, cloud-dependent AI just instantly becomes useless. It's a brick. So the very people who stand to benefit the absolutely most from these intelligent leapfrog tools, they're the exact ones being left entirely behind by our current architecture. And that brings us right to the core philosophy of Lexis. It's captured so perfectly by their founder, who says, "The next wave of AI adoption won't be driven by compute. It will be driven by access." It's such a profound shift in perspective. You know, the most impactful AI problem in the world right now isn't about training some trillion-parameter model in a huge server farm. It's about grassroots accessibility. It's about engineering a way to put real, powerful intelligence directly into the hands of users, on their own devices, totally independent of the grid. Section 2. Introducing Lexis AI. So who is actually stepping up to solve this massive infrastructure gap? Well, meet Siyamthanda Miya. He's the founder and CTO of Lexis AI out of Johannesburg, South Africa. And what makes his background so incredibly striking is that he's an entirely self-taught underdog innovator. We're talking over 2 years of getting intensely hands-on, building large language model systems completely from scratch through relentless self-study and iteration. He isn't sitting in some cushy traditional tech hub just waiting for the infrastructure to catch up. He's actively architecting solutions for the very environment he lives in. His entire drive is summed up perfectly here. I saw a gap nobody was solving, so I opened my laptop and started building. I mean, while the rest of the industry was busy ignoring a market of literally hundreds of millions of people, he just sat down, started writing the back end, and architected the systems himself. It is the absolute classic builder's mindset, but applied directly to this overlooked global crisis. And the mission born from that drive? It's incredibly pragmatic. Lexis is building AI for the world that actually exists. Not the idealized, perfectly connected world, but the real one. They are pioneering this offline-first, on-device approach. It's AI that doesn't drop when the network does, simply because it doesn't even rely on the network in the first place. For any potential investors listening, this level of practical realism is a massive selling point. Okay, moving into section 3, the technical innovation. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you actually run technology that's famous for requiring supercomputers on an everyday device with zero internet? The contrast here is just night and day. Traditional AI is fundamentally cloud-dependent. It needs heavy graphical processing units, or GPUs, and your data absolutely must leave your device to make the whole thing work. Lexis AI flips that entirely on its head. Their architecture is offline first. It's specifically optimized for standard CPUs, the kind found in everyday computers, and it operates with strict data sovereignty, which basically means your data never leaves your local environment. So how do they pull this off? They use what are called quantized models, specifically using the GGUF format and software like llama.cpp. Put simply, quantization compresses or shrinks the AI's brain. It allows a genuinely powerful model to run totally smoothly on everyday, highly constrained hardware, like older CPUs and student laptops with really limited RAM. They're engineering the AI for the hardware a real person actually owns, not the hardware sitting in a billion-dollar server farm. This drastically lowers the barrier to entry, and, not to mention, heavily reduces operating costs. But here's the thing, a small model isn't really enough on its own, right? It has to actually be useful. And that is where Local Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, steps in. Lexis uses local ChromaDB vector stores to allow their AI to instantly read, search, and reason over a user's own local documents. So, an entire massive textbook or an internal company manual can be referenced by the AI completely locally. It's smart, it's totally context-aware, and absolutely zero internet connection is required to make it happen. And building offline first creates this really massive built-in advantage, absolute data sovereignty. Because the whole system runs right there on the device, no data ever leaves without explicit consent. This makes it inherently compliant with super strict data protection laws, like South Africa's POPIA. It's literally built for institutions that just cannot afford to have their sensitive data shipped off overseas to some random server. For an investor, you have to realize this isn't just a neat tech feature, it's a massive competitive moat in regions with strict compliance laws. Plus, smartly, if connectivity does return, the system just quietly syncs up in the background. Let's look at Section 4, Purpose-Built Products. So how does Lexis actually channel this awesome technical foundation into a real business? Well, they aren't just building some generic, run-of-the-mill chatbot. They're targeting 3 distinct, absolutely massive segments. First up, LexiDrift targets the over 2.3 million higher education students in South Africa as an academic AI. Then there's LexiTitan, which is aimed at the 750,000-plus registered SMEs for workflow automation. And finally, LexiNova is a freemium emotional AI companion for the general public. These are enormous, totally validated audiences that are absolutely desperate for tools that accommodate their daily infrastructure reality. LexiDrift is honestly the perfect example of this vision in action. Just think about the severe pain points of trying to study in a rural area or trying to finish your research during rolling blackouts. Drift acts as an intelligent tutor and research assistant running entirely on local hardware within a secure, institution-branded environment. It gives universities a highly reliable way to provide cutting-edge AI to their students without constantly worrying about internet inequality or data privacy breaches. The product-market fit here is just immediate. Which brings us to Section 5, the investor pitch. So what does this look like as a business trajectory? Lexis is currently raising an incredibly lean pre-seed round of just 300,000 South African rand. This initial capital is highly focused. It's designed specifically to fund the very final stages of product development and execute their initial market launch. It is a brilliant, totally capital-efficient approach for a startup because they're building software that intrinsically avoids those massive cloud hosting bills from day one. And their roadmap for the next 12 months is incredibly aggressive and laser-focused. Out of the 26 public universities in South Africa, their immediate goal is to deploy LexiDrift at 2 or more pilot campuses, while at the very same time onboarding at least 10 SME clients onto LexiTitan. The ultimate goal of this sprint is to lock in deeply validated product-market fit, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that offline-first AI is a critical, highly scalable business solution. Securing that validation, that perfectly sets the stage for substantial Series A fundraise. Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought to ponder. Will the next major AI breakthrough actually happen off the grid? We are all so conditioned to associate AI progress with bigger servers and faster internet. But Lexis AI makes this incredibly compelling, investor-ready case that true disruption might come from doing the exact opposite, by bringing intelligence all the way down to the device, making it resilient, and finally granting access to the hundreds of millions of people the rest of the tech world simply forgot about. It's a brilliant pivot, and this is absolutely a startup worth watching. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.